Welcome to Partisan Pulse, where we cut through the noise and expose the stark realities behind political rhetoric. Tonight, we're dissecting Donald Trump's latest attempt to paint a picture of American triumph, a narrative that, frankly, crumbles under the weight of verifiable facts and data. His State of the Union address was billed as a declaration of victory, a celebration of unparalleled success. But for millions of Americans, the reality on the ground feels dramatically different. Trump's playbook is familiar. Project an image of overwhelming strength, declare victory, and insist that everything is great, even when the evidence points in the opposite direction. He wants you to believe that the nation is in a golden age, that winning is the only thing we know. But when you look past the bluster, when you examine the numbers, a far more sobering truth emerges. We're going to pull back the curtain on this performance using only the facts. We'll expose the contradictions, the unfulfilled promises, and the direct challenges to the everyday lives of working Americans that Trump conveniently glossed over. This isn't about opinion, it's about evidence. It's about holding power accountable to the truth. Let's dive in.
So Donald Trump just had a State of the Union, and it was long and boring with goofy things like he always does. It was a big, beautiful helicopter invading Venezuela. There were many, many troops. All right, just get to the goddamn point, right? And then he bragged about nonsensical things like, we were gonna give 1775 to the troops. In fact, he kept saying, like, oh, we won and won, we're winning so much, people love how much we're winning. Then why are you minus 27 in approval rating? Can you acknowledge reality for once in your life? And of course he couldn't. So what he did with the rest of the speech was, and then there's Bobby, and he was covered in blood, and it was someone we don't like. And so we did hit him, and we did bad things to him. And now there was Susie, she was covered in blood, okay? And then we did bad things to the person who covered her in blood, yeah. And then every time C-SPAN would go to like Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib, and they're looking at like, what the hell's going on here, right? And attacking people, as he always says. But I thought it was, and by the way, guys, you know we give credit where credit is due, and we separate out policy and effectiveness and politics. And so often on the show, we've told you, as much as Trump might drive you crazy, politically, some of the stuff that he did, pretending to be a populist, etc., was very effective. And we told you when it was effective. And in fact, we warned you that he might win the 2 elections that he won because we were worried that it was effective. This was not that. This was totally ineffective and dull, and I don't think that it's gonna help him at all. Anna, what do you think?
I think that our country and normal American working class people continue to struggle, and there was absolutely nothing in that speech that made it clear to me that Trump either lives in this reality that Americans are facing or even gives a damn about the reality that Americans are facing. He talked about how he banned institutional investors from buying up residential real estate, which is nonsense. That would need to be passed through Congress, and Congress overwhelmingly rejected the idea of passing that type of legislation.
Here we see a textbook example of Trump's tendency to claim credit for actions he hasn't taken, or even for policies that have been actively rejected. The idea that he banned institutional investors from buying up residential real estate sounds like a powerful populist move, directly addressing a major concern for many Americans struggling to afford a home. It's designed to appeal to those feeling squeezed by a competitive housing market. However, the reality is far more inconvenient for his narrative. Such a ban would require legislative action, a bill passed through Congress. And as the facts show, Congress overwhelmingly rejected any such legislation. This isn't a matter of opinion or interpretation. It's a verifiable legislative record. Trump cannot simply declare a policy enacted, especially one requiring congressional approval, and expect it to be true. This pattern of making grand, unsubstantiated claims about policy achievements is deeply troubling. It undermines the integrity of political discourse and creates a false sense of accomplishment. It leaves voters confused about what is truly happening in Washington and what their elected officials are actually doing. When a leader makes a claim that can be so easily disproven by looking at public records, it erodes public trust, not just in that individual, but in the political process itself. It's crucial for us to scrutinize these claims, to not just take them at face value, but to ask, is this actually true? What's the evidence? In this case, the evidence is clear. Trump did not ban institutional investors from buying residential real estate. It was a talking point, a promise, perhaps even a desire, but it was not a legislative reality. And presenting it as such is a deliberate misrepresentation that demands our attention.
Simply because Trump says he's going to do something doesn't mean that he actually did it. In fact, he usually doesn't do what he claims he's going to do on behalf of working class Americans. Our country is now drowning in $40 trillion in debt.
Now let's turn to military spending, an area where Trump's rhetoric often clashes with fiscal prudence and accountability. His proposal to significantly increase the defense budget, pushing it to an astronomical $1.5 trillion, raises serious questions about priorities and oversight. He asserts that $1 trillion in the defense budget is not enough, demanding an additional $500 billion on top of already massive spending. This comes after a period where there were even discussions about potentially cutting the defense budget, showing a dramatic shift in priorities. But the most alarming aspect isn't just the sheer volume of spending, it's the lack of accountability. The fact that the defense budget has never passed an audit is a scandal in itself. This means billions, if not trillions, of taxpayer dollars are spent without proper scrutiny, without a clear understanding of where they go. To then propose adding another $500 billion, knowing this fundamental lack of oversight, is fiscally irresponsible and deeply concerning. The hosts claim that that money is going towards slush funds and pork while we're drowning in debt, points to a significant problem of waste and inefficiency. It suggests that these massive increases aren't necessarily about strategic national security needs, but rather about political favors and unchecked spending. This isn't just a matter of military strategy. It's a question of how wisely and responsibly our taxpayer money is being used. When a leader advocates for such colossal increases in spending without demanding accountability and transparency, especially when the nation is already drowning in debt, it reveals a disconnect from the principles of sound governance and fiscal responsibility. It's a stark reminder that America First should also mean fiscal discipline and ensuring every dollar spent serves the American people transparently.
The situation is going to be made much worse as we continue this military buildup in the Persian Gulf and potentially have a sustained military campaign against Iran that does not benefit the American people in any way, shape, or form. It could potentially risk the lives of our soldiers in the region who are based in the Middle East. But focusing on, Americans domestically and what they're experiencing with their finances, you want to brag about the economy. Why don't you talk a little bit about the fact that Americans are experiencing record debt, personal debt, credit card debt, no end in sight when it comes to relief. Obviously, our healthcare is even more expensive now that the subsidies for the Affordable Care Act have expired, thanks to the Republican members of Congress who refused to extend them. The ridiculous notion that Trump has lowered pharmaceutical drug prices is just demonstrably untrue, and you can check for yourselves. Don't take my word for it. Log on to his platform where he alleges that you can get your pharmaceutical drugs for much less. It's just not true. I am at a point in my life where I understand the Americans who voted for Trump in 2016 because they were genuinely under the impression that he was America first. I do not want to get involved in foreign entanglements. I think we do need to focus on our country. But here's the problem. Trump is not representative of a politician who actually gives a damn about the United States. He has raped and pillaged this country of its resources. He has used the office of the presidency to enrich himself and will continue to do so. And when you look at our deficit, meaning the amount that we are overspending above what we're bringing in revenue, it continues to explode under the Trump administration, meaning that our national debt will continue to grow faster and faster. We're already spending $1 trillion a year servicing our national debt. It's only gonna get worse. We need a real leader. And for me, a real leader is someone who's willing to stand up and say, I am against the Zionists. No more money for Israel, no more foreign entanglements, no more nonsense in the Middle East. We're gonna focus on the United States. We're gonna use these resources, not on foreign aid for Israel, but on building our infrastructure here in the US. That's what the focus should be. Trump is never gonna do it, guys, and neither are these stanky ass corporate Democrats who have disappointed us time and time again. It's time to have higher standards, and we need to see proof that a politician is willing to give Israel the middle finger and focus his or her attention on the United States, on the American people, because we freaking deserve it. That's my take. Go ahead.
Yeah, before I get to John, real quick, a couple of numbers to back up what Anna's saying. So we added $4 trillion to the debt through the giant tax cuts that he bragged about in the speech. He is now talking about, hey, $1 trillion in the defense budget is not enough. Before they were talking about cutting it, now they've added tremendously to it. Now he's proposing to add another $500 billion on top to make it $1.5 trillion, even though they have never passed an audit. That money is going to slush funds and pork while we're drowning in debt. We spent $8 trillion on the global war on Israel's enemies. And so Trump has added at least $12 trillion to a $38 trillion debt.
Let's talk about the economy, specifically the national debt, a colossal issue that impacts every single American now and for generations to come. Trump often touts his economic record, yet the numbers tell a story of unprecedented fiscal expansion, largely driven by policies like his massive tax cuts. When we talk about a country drowning in $40 trillion in debt, that's not hyperbole. It's a staggering figure that represents a burden on our collective future. The specific claim that we added $4 trillion to the debt through the giant tax cuts that he bragged about in the speech is a direct indictment of his fiscal approach. These tax cuts, disproportionately benefiting corporations and the wealthy, did not pay for themselves as promised. Instead, they fueled a massive increase in the national debt, directly contradicting the fiscal conservatism that some of his supporters claim to champion. Furthermore, the assertion that Trump has added at least $12 trillion to a $38 trillion debt puts his administration's contribution into stark perspective. This isn't just about abstract numbers, it's about the interest payments on that debt, which now consume a significant portion of our annual budget, money that could be invested in infrastructure, education, healthcare, or combating climate change. This exploding debt limits our national flexibility and burdens our children and grandchildren with the consequences of today's fiscal choices. When a politician brags about economic success, but the underlying data shows a skyrocketing national debt due to their policies, it's a critical point of accountability. It reveals a fundamental flaw in their economic narrative. This isn't just a political talking point, it's a profound challenge to our nation's long-term economic stability and a direct consequence of specific policy decisions made under his leadership.
There's no end in sight. They're not even talking about balancing the budget. It's an economic nightmare, and that's gonna explode on us. This war is gonna explode on us, but back to John now.
Yeah, it's an absolute mess. And I remember the months last year that Republicans had discovered, like how Trump discovered the word affordability, they discovered waste, fraud, and abuse, thanks to Elon Musk, and they were so focused on getting rid of it. And now they're just gonna add $500 billion to the military budget. You mentioned earlier the Republican response, how they didn't seem to get it. They're all cheering and everything. And I think Trump doesn't get how mad people are. I think the Republicans in the room don't care because they've already gotten everything they need. They got their tax cuts that benefit them personally and more importantly, benefit far more their donors. And they're permanent. Like it's unlikely the Democrats are going to get rid of them. And even if they do, it's gonna take literally years. And now, the midterms are gonna go bad for the Republicans. That might be bad for Donald Trump, but for the vast majority of the Republicans in that room who are not gonna lose their seats and will find themselves in the minority, who the hell cares? I'm sure that's a load off their back because now there's no more obligation for them to actually do anything. They got the only legislation they actually care about, and now they can just sit fat and happy for the next couple of years.
We can't keep moving forward the way we've been moving forward, John, right? Like the typical, let's wait and hopefully we can have a candidate that we slightly liked, and maybe if we vote for
I don't find that utterly acceptable at all, but I'm saying the Republicans do not care if there's only 200 of them after this. because they got what they wanted. Now, for Donald Trump, there is a speech he could have given that I think could have actually done as much as any State of the Union could do to turn his numbers around. But unfortunately, everything about him, like to the cellular level, and certainly everything of his brain, he cannot take responsibility. He cannot own up to the failings. He just won't do it. And so, like regular Republicans who are watching that are gonna soak up all of the propaganda, the jingoism and all that, the medals here and medals there and all that, and they're probably gonna like it. It's gonna feel good. Some of those were feel-good stories of people overcoming terrible circumstances and being covered in blood and all that stuff. And they're gonna feel good about it. But the issue is that then they're gonna go to sleep and they're gonna wake up and they're still not gonna be able to afford a house. And they're not gonna be able to afford their medical insurance. And it isn't gonna matter who got the Medal of Freedom if they can't afford anything. And if they're falling behind it, they have no hope that their kids are gonna do better than they were. And then they're gonna think about it, oh my God, not only did Donald Trump not actually solve the problems and didn't even seem to acknowledge them in the State of the Union, he also spit in my face saying, oh, we're so tired of winning, we're winning too much, oh, can we slow down on the winning? Everything's great, golden age this and American glory that. And the person who cannot afford anything and their credit card debt is continually going up is gonna feel, I think, justifiably enraged by the display that they saw. And I don't think, like I was thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs while I was watching that. If things are like okay, then not actually addressing the real problems that remain and just giving me like, oh, immigrants are bad and hey, look at this guy, he did a great thing, he gets a medal. Maybe that's a good distraction or can sustain me. But when I am struggling to survive, I do not care about that stuff. It's not as effective as it used to be, and it hasn't been as effective as it used to be for literally months. Donald Trump has been telling those lies about gas being $1.99 for the better part of half a year at this point. It's never been true, and people don't seem to be buying it because his numbers keep slipping. Just yelling it louder and with some energy, I don't see how that as a strategy could possibly work. I think that this is actually gonna hurt him.
Yeah, so let me just follow up on a couple of things that were said. So John mentioned the lies and how it doesn't help. Well, and you mentioned during the speech that he said, oh, and I cut taxes on your security, except they didn't. So then if you're, have Social Security, you know that. Is that lie still gonna work for you?
Finally, let's address a claim that strikes at the heart of financial security for millions of seniors: Social Security. During his speech, Trump claimed, oh, and I cut taxes on your Social Security. This is not just a misleading statement, it is demonstrably false. The reality is his administration did not cut taxes on Social Security benefits. This type of claim is particularly egregious because it targets a vulnerable population, individuals who rely on Social Security for their retirement and often have limited other income sources. Misrepresenting policy changes related to their benefits can create confusion, false hope, and ultimately erode trust in the very system designed to protect them. Social Security is a lifeline for millions, and any changes to its taxation or benefits are highly scrutinized and deeply impactful. To make such a definitive claim about tax cuts that simply did not occur is a profound disservice to the American public. It's a calculated attempt to claim credit for something that never happened, intending to sway voters who are rightly concerned about their financial future. This isn't just a misstatement. It's a direct falsehood on a critical issue. It underscores a pattern of prioritizing political narrative over factual accuracy, especially when appealing to specific voter demographics. For seniors who pay close attention to anything impacting their Social Security, such a blatant untruth is not easily forgotten. It should serve as a clear reminder that we must always verify claims, especially when they come from the highest levels of power, and particularly when they affect the most fundamental aspects of our financial well-being.
Then one of our viewers looked up the 9 drugs he's taken on Trump RX, because what we said during the speech is you can go look up your drugs on Trump RX. It's not gonna be covered. Just like Joe Biden, he covered a tiny amount of drugs and pretends that he solves the problem, when in reality, we still can't negotiate drug prices. That's why they're sky high. And we're all paying a fortune for them. Just doing marketing and blobbity blah doesn't solve any of these problems. Housing prices, he said, I'm not going to bring them down. He bragged about how high they were and how he's going to keep them up. People are furious about housing prices. So he's almost rubbing it in their face.
One of the most pressing economic concerns for millions of Americans is the soaring cost of housing. It dictates where people can live, their financial stability, and their ability to build wealth. So when Trump directly states, "I'm not going to bring them down," referring to housing prices, and then proceeds to brag about how high they were and how he's going to keep them up. It's more than just a policy statement. It's a remarkable display of insensitivity to the struggles of everyday people. This isn't a nuanced economic position. It's a declaration that directly opposes the financial well-being of a vast segment of the population. For those struggling to afford rent, save for a down payment, or simply keep a roof over their heads, high housing prices are not a point of pride or a sign of success. They are a crushing burden. To brag about this reality, to actively state a desire to keep prices elevated, is to rub salt in the wounds of those most affected. It exposes a profound disconnect between the political elite and the lived experiences of working-class families. While high housing prices might benefit certain segments of the economy or individual investors, they are a fundamental barrier to economic mobility and stability for many others. A leader who genuinely cares about the prosperity of all Americans should be focused on solutions to make housing more accessible and affordable, not celebrating its unaffordability. This statement reveals a fundamental misunderstanding, or perhaps a deliberate disregard for the economic pain points of the average voter. It's a moment that lays bare the priorities of his administration, an economy that serves the top while leaving the majority to contend with ever-increasing costs. This is not leadership that empathizes with the struggles of the American people. It's leadership that celebrates outcomes that actively harm them. What we've seen tonight isn't just political rhetoric. It's a deliberate attempt to construct an alternate reality, one where inconvenient facts about approval ratings, legislative failures, skyrocketing debt, unchecked spending, and the true cost of living are simply ignored or spun into victories. This pattern of misdirection, of claiming credit for what hasn't been done and denying what has profound implications. For voters, it means making decisions based on fiction rather than fact. For our institutions, it erodes the very foundation of accountability and transparency. For policy, it means we can't even have an honest debate about the challenges facing our nation because the starting points are fundamentally skewed. And for credibility, it's a slow-motion disaster, chipping away at the public's belief in political leaders and the democratic process itself. Partisan Pulse is here to ensure that the facts, the verifiable data, and the direct quotes are always brought into focus. We demand accountability, not just for the sake of political argument, but for the health of our republic and the well-being of every American. This isn't about partisan loyalty, it's about holding power to the highest standard of truth. The State of the Union is not strong when it's built on a foundation of misdirection. It's time to demand better. It's time to demand honesty. If you believe in holding power accountable and demanding truth from our leaders, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to Partisan Pulse. We'll keep bringing you the unvarnished truth because you deserve nothing less.